Exsanguinator Cavalry is good, but is it good enough that we should put more knights into our mono black deck? Let's find out. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video. Just in case you didn't hear from yesterday's video, YouTube members will now have early access to all of my videos. So if you're itching for extra Phil content a little early around the holidays, consider becoming a YouTube member. All right, with that being said, let's get into today's kind of idea. So Isaac sent me a list with Exsanguinator Cavalry, kind of asking the question, like, is this card good enough that we should be playing more knights in them, even if the knights aren't objectively like legacy power level cards? And I think that's a really interesting question, because Exsanguinator Cavalry is crazy, especially in multiples, as we've seen in a couple of videos. So playing more knights that can cause these triggers to happen and give you those blood tokens and let you kind of draw through your situational cards and like kind of prevent flooding, like there's a lot to like here. Unfortunately, in mono black in particular, most of the knights that you have are either slow, mana intensive, or not particularly powerful. So this was what Isaac identified as probably the best of the bunch. And Knight of the Ebon Legion does see play in other formats. Like, this is not an embarrassing Magic the Gathering card. This is a 1/2, meaning in the context of Legacy specifically, it doesn't die to Bowmasters. It is a play that you can make on turn 1. It will scale up automatically, and this says if a player lost 4 or more life, this doesn't have to be involved in doing that damage, so it's not like this thing only triggers if you activate its top ability. And this does just give you a mana sink, and technically these Ancient Tomb decks do sometimes reach points in games where you can just activate this ability twice. Probably not 3 times, but twice is pretty reasonable. And at that point, you've kind of built your own Murktide Regent out of something you spent 1 mana on instead of 2. Wait, maybe Murktide Regent is just too good. All right, let's take a look at the whole deck list here. All right, so Isaac sent me the main deck, which I did not touch, and I just built the sideboard for this one. So generally speaking, this deck is kind of the mono black, like Reanimate, Grief, Troll of Khazad-dum shell that you are probably used to seeing by now, supplemented by these 8 knights. And this means that you do have a few more turn 1 plays that don't just require like the perfects of like Chrome Mox and Ancient Tomb going and hitting exactly what they need to hit. So let's instead focus our attention on the sideboard, because this is where a lot of the work went in. So because we are playing something like Knight in this slot, we are missing out on, let's just make myself big here. We're missing out on other disruptive elements that we normally might have. These are things like Thoughtseize and Opposition Agent. So that is going to be a hole that we are going to be looking to fill in the sideboard. The other thing that playing a shell that looks like this with these extra knights is going to do is it means that you're going to be playing less removal in game 1. So a lot of times in the decks that look like this, you'll see like some Hagra Maulings or something like that as cards that can get imprinted under Chrome Mox while also being removal spells later on in the game. And we don't have something like that here. So in the sideboard, the first thing that I need to address is the lack of game 1 interaction for combo decks. We still have Grief, Reanimate, Grief, but we're not always going to, know that when we keep the hand in game 1. So I think Thoughtseize is really important. As is a couple more pieces of removal. I've chosen Sheoldred's Edict and Plague Engineer. Sudden Edict used to be kind of the go-to edict of choice, in my opinion, and Orcish Bowmasters being everywhere has just made Sudden Edict much worse. I understand Isaac wanting to play Sudden Edict in this specific one, though. If you are not going to have many removal spells, always making sure that they resolve in a game 1 scenario versus something like Delver is kind of a big deal. Not 100% sure which one of those is right, but I understand the reasoning. And then we've got Plague Engineer to kind of help with some of the creature type decks. You know, there's a lot of goblins floating around, helps out a lot versus things like Death and Taxes as well. And then one thing that I was noticing in the mono black versions that did not have Wasteland is that they're a little soft versus Urza's Saga. You don't get to run like Dress Down or Hercule's Recall or Meltdown being in mono black. So I think having Pithing Needle in the deck makes a lot of sense as a way to kind of fight against Urza's Saga tokens. I think oftentimes something like Toxic Deluge is just going to cost you too much life to clear the constructs while also maybe killing your stuff, so I didn't want to go with that. In a previous league, I tried Sorceress Spyglass, but I think just the mana efficiency matters too much. Like, sometimes you just want to play Swamp, Pithing Needle, shut off Saga, like, move on, and then deploy a Soul Land on turn 2. Especially if your Soul Land is City of Traders. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then we're going to be playing Fairy over Leyline in this deck, and I think that's going to be kind of the go-to one for decks that are running Reanimate, because you know you can just bring it back as a creature, and it gives you the surprise element as well. Oh, so yeah, so let's see how this one does. If you end up needing to buy some Knights, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. Let's battle. So my opening hand does not have any plan here. Like, it is just turn 2 Dalthy Voidwalker with nothing else to do. I think that means that this one is a mulligan. This hand is perfectly reasonable. I think I just throw back Swamp number 3. There's something to be said in keeping just a rock-solid mana base of Swamp, 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 but I lose out on some speed if I do so. Okay. I'm, like, not the biggest fan of that draw. Also, apologies if I still sound a little stuffy. I'm recording this one right after I recorded the previous one, and I feel like I just need to jam a needle into my skull and let all the snot just drain out. Am I gonna get dazed? We are not gonna get dazed. That might mean we're just gonna get our little horsey friend lightning bolted here. No. Well, I like this for me then. This is great. Yeah, you can get rid of that Chrome Mox. I am done with that card. Then that gets a polluted Delta back. A-okay with me, boss. Send him. So this just starts scaling up. I think the line is awkward, but I think it is play Bowmasters around a potential daze. I'm not so much expecting it anymore. And then blood token away a swamp for a redraw. I'm perfectly happy with that as long as I don't get wastelanded. And I think my opponent has enough onboard trouble here that wastelanding me is not going to be a priority. That's fine. I'm happy with keeping either one of these cards in hand. Sure. Alright, you Bowmasters, my Bowmasters, all Bowmasters, your Bowmasters. Oh, right, you took my Bowmasters. Okay. Play Knight. Crash in. I don't care if you block and kill my Orc. So this gives me multiple blood tokens. I can use this to loot away the Doughty Voidwalker that I'm not very good at playing right now. Alright, your Brainstorm is unlocked. We do kind of want to end this game quickly. I don't have the same sort of end game card advantage that my opponent does, like assuming they're on beans. So like, yeah, we do not have the inevitability here. My opponent does. But I do have 2 just fucking Menace Knights in play, so you know. That's an awkward one. Yeah, whatever. Go, horsey, go. Murderous cut. Okay. Opponent goes to 8. I think I am supposed to use this despite the fact that this gives my opponent a Bowmaster trigger. I think I am discarding the Grief. That's not the land I wanted. But okay. The discard card is part of the cost, so I can't just draw a card with those. The cantrips are fine. Murderous Cut taking out that large cavalry was rough. The defining moment, though, is probably my opponent answering 2 Bowmasters in a single turn cycle, though. Like, that's the real problem spot. I also maybe could have, like, not used a blood token initially, discarding that swamp, and then I get Alti Voidwalker into play earlier. There's decision trees in this match. Damn, another one. Alright, Voidwalker goes down. Alright. That'll cantrip next turn as well. Well, this is essentially Lightning Bolt. Okay. Not the biggest fan. Especially since if one of my opponent's remaining cards is another Bowmaster, it's just very awkward. They don't actually accomplish anything. Alright. Lightning Bolt is a success. Sudden Edict not being Sheoldred's Edict is a huge deal here, because my blood tokens are currently being taxed by Bowmasters. I think I just fully concede the game to that. This Murderous Cut. My opponent can just tap out for it, like, that's perfectly fine. Oh. Never mind. It's going to draw 2 cards. I think with double Beanstalk and Bowmasters, and I'm on 1 land here, I'm comfortable just going to the next game. Someone's got to teach my opponent how Roman numerals work, though. They're a little off. So, Sudden Edict immediately becomes Sheoldred's Edict. And I probably want Plague Engineers for Orcs. Probably get rid of that for that. My cards seem pretty reasonable. I think I'm going to get rid of one of these as a low impact card for another Plague Engineer. Like, I'm not unhappy to draw this or anything, but this is essentially a 5-card hand. Like, these are both dead. Like, I lost the game last time with a hand that looks like this, and with 2 dead cards here, I think I just have to try to do better. 5. Romox, Imprint, Sheoldred, Dark Ritual, Exsanguinator Cavalry. Keep Reanimate to bring it back. Oh, this is awful. What if I keep Knight? Keeping Knight higher upside? I don't think so. But we probably concede this one pretty quickly. I don't imagine that this 5-card hand wins most of the time versus my opponent. Like, I just don't think this is strong enough or consistent enough. Okay, I mean, this is why we kept the Reanimate. So, let's do that. But assuming my opponent has another removal spell of some kind, I just don't think we keep pace with what they're doing. That is not a good card. Anytime soon, I will immediately blood token that away. I guess we'll do it post-combat formally. So get rid of Grief. We hit a land drop. I guess land drops are some of the better cards right now. No, that's totally cool and fine and normal. And not scary at all. Okay, I mean, that's good. Send it. Sure. You're gonna dismember me. You're gonna fatal push me. Alright. I think I am supposed to sorcery speed this. And just not give my opponent any window to brainstorm. We've drawn pretty well here. Yeah. Alright. I'll play a turn cycle or so, but I think the ship has sailed for this one. It is my general impression that the Beanstalk decks are pretty good versus the mono black decks that look like this. They have a good range of removal with like Fatal Push, Dismember, Murderous Cut cantrips, sometimes multiple times. They have a really good endgame. They have Bowmasters for our own Bowmasters. The Orcs also just make jump blockers. Oh, and Merc died? Yeah, no, that's fine. Like, we were already at a massive disadvantage, and our... Oh, just show me the hand for Rubbins, yeah. Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com, just the best place to keep your online deck lists, and the reason I say that is it just has so much functionality. So for example, let's take a look at some random legacy deck here. You can click on your various 2-drop slots and you can see what % chance you have of casting various things on curve, and you can get a breakdown of your mana symbols and all of that stuff, and there's a lot more here than just this. Consider checking it out. All right. This says no mana. Just doing me dirty today, deck. There are like trolls in here. I put them in. I've seen them. There's a troll. We're forced to Chrommox to get an initial play. Disgusting. I'm upset. At this stage, I keep. Grief doesn't make sense anymore. The Edict doesn't make a lot of sense. Now what? I think we're going in on Cavalry. I think the times where this match goes the best for me are the times where Cavalry spirals out of control, and I also just luck into the second mana source for this. It's like there's sometimes where we'll be playing against Delver and our opponent doesn't have Lightning Bolt in their opener, and I can just try to ride this to victory. The other way I can play this is just play Dauthi Voidwalker and hope my opponent is playing something like Reanimator. Oh yeah, cast your Chalice. We're good. Oh, okay. I need this in play ASAP. We are playing against Ruby Storm, potentially with a blue splash for Echo of Eons, which is why I'm thinking so much about Dauthi Voidwalker being good right now. Let's just immediately loot. We're looking for a land drop. That gets me to the same place. That's fine. That gets me to Dauthi Voidwalker next turn. This turn can be scary, though. Like, I legitimately could die. Alright. 6 mana. And red spells are cheaper, so... This is usually a non-deterministic combo deck, though, so my opponent is going to play a lot of the, like... I think they call them, like, rummage-type cards, where it's, like, exile 2 cards, you can play them. There's the Burgie. Yeah, this Reckless Impulse type stuff. My opponent is going to try to chain those together. They did not hit any more of them. So they can make a little more mana, but they need more stuff from hand. Wish. Sure. They've got options in what they do next. Cast in Flames. Okay. I assume this leads to my death. Let's skip ahead. And a few minutes later, my opponent puts a lethal Grape Shot onto the stack, and I die. So my opponent won the game with a Past in Flames based line, but there's a very good chance that they can just wish for something else other than Past in Flames, so I don't think we lost for not putting Dauthi Voidwalker into play on turn 1. I'm happy with how I played that. Null Rod, actively good. Thoughtseize, actively good. Plague Engineer and Fairy have text. Pithing Needle has text for Arnfell, the back of the Burgie card. So my Knights are pretty weak in this matchup. I don't want to be investing mana into them. Bowmaster is also, like, not particularly strong. A lot of the things my opponent does don't technically draw cards. Edicts are okay. I probably don't want to overload. Also probably just lower my curve a bit, dropping this. Do these 5 cards in, and I can think about some of this other stuff. But I'm not, like, the most interested. I'm essentially looking to Grief Reanimate Grief my opponent. City, cycle. Turn 2. Have 5 mana. Play Cavalry and Voidwalker. I don't know that this races my opponent. I'm gonna ship this. This is fine. This goes back into the deck. Maybe Chromox was supposed to go back. Thoughtseize target you. Take the Medallion. Swamp Cycle, grab Swamp, reanimate the Troll. It's just a fast clock. Yeah, this Chromox is awkward. Not that the Shouldered would have been amazing either, though. Ah. Another Shouldered. Thundum. This is more along the lines of what I wanted to do conceptually with a hand. This is end of next turn. That's something that draws a card. If I draw a soul land, I can play a Shouldered. I did not. We'll just hit again. Damn near any draw lets me play Shouldered, and then that shortens the clock by 1 turn. My opponent now has to win the game this turn or answer Troll. Because 6 to 8 is a very critical difference. And red removal is not great at dealing 5 damage to a Troll. Not on low mana amounts anyway. Alright, they're going. Bonus round is interesting if my opponent has like 2 rituals in hand. They do not. At least not castable ones. So I think when I'm on the draw, having a little bit more of this stuff makes sense. To just help with Burgy as the turn lines. Some number of Shouldereds and Orcish Bowmasters are coming out for these. I think one of each. Not 100% sure though. Does this deck need more land? This is a very, 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 very strong Exsanguinator Cavalry start. Like, this kills my opponent quickly. I don't think I'm supposed to keep a hand that looks like this though. Like, I want to disrupt. Yes. So Swamp, Grief, Black card, Reanimate, Grief. I'm keeping this. I probably just pitched the most expensive card here. A white Leyline would be really annoying if my opponent is randomly playing that. Alright, my opponent's on 5. Sure. Oh. We're doing it the hard way. My opponent can chain these together. Just a baby Galvanic Relay. I mean, that's pretty good against a Grief-based start. Oh, that's really good. Okay. There's a very good chance that I'm not reanimating Grief anymore, and that I'm going to want to reanimate this Troll to just clock my opponent. Let's Grief. Probably pitching this here. I think it is still worth taking the last... No, it's a land. I will just pass the turn here with the intention of getting my second land drop to either play Douthly Voidwalker or reanimate Troll. So I'm hopefully okay here. There's a couple of very specific things that can happen that end up being very, very bad for me. So that'll just be the Reckless Impulse. Okay, cool. My opponent will no longer have access to that bonus round, which is kind of a huge deal. Graveyard's already kind of stacked. Playing Douthly Voidwalker now is sort of awkward. Let's just take a peek over there. We'll grab a Burning Wish and reanimate the Troll. I am at 12, which is like definitely awkward in terms of like Grape Shot and such being just strong. That's a very good draw. That lets my opponent go into Seething Song easily. Yep. Now the second medallion comes out. And those are just there forever. I'm a black deck. I don't get to remove artifacts. The mana is not the bottleneck. Cards are. That's very scary. I think there's a good chance that I'm dead this turn. As soon as my opponent hits like one ritual, this just immediately gets spooky. This whiffs though. Rite of Flame good enough. Brings my opponent to 4. Yeah, that's good enough for like an Empty the Warrens. Oh, Ancient Tomb. Sure. I'm just dead to this Burning Wish, I think. Cast in Flames. Let me math that out. They just cast a Seething Song and then cast Burning Wish again, and Grape Shot kills me. Unless their Grape Shot is currently in their deck rather than their sideboard. Alright, I've figured out the lethal line. I'm going to skip ahead. Okay, they're doing Tendrils instead of Grape Shot, but the result is the same. I am dead. GG's. Alright, I think we're going all in on a Shouldered here. I guess I can Grief Pitch Dark Ritual as a starting point, and if I decide I need a second Grief, I can keep that flexibility. I'll owe blue cards. I take a Ponder, and I go all in on Sheoldred. Chromox, Imprint Grief, Dark Ritual, Ancient Tomb. Please cast your cantrips. Sheoldred is Bane now for some reason. I don't know. I didn't sleep very much last night. Yes. Yes. We're probably playing against Delver, and my opponent probably has like one, maybe two cards that answer this Sheoldred in their game one main deck. So, you know, this is going to be a hell of a clock. And anything we draw from here is just great. They did choose not to shuffle with that Ponder, for what it's worth. There is some chance my opponent is a Grixis Delver deck, and it is a mistake to Swamp Cycle this to make my next land drop. Making land drops versus Delver in a vacuum is kind of important. And if my opponent puts a Troll in play, I think they're just going to die to Sheoldred triggers anyway, so there's that. There we go. 7. That's fine. Sure. So I can't play that card this turn. It'll be fine if I draw it in a minute. This brings my opponent to 1. Fetches are off the table for the rest of the game. Sure. Double Lightning Bolt. Double Lightning Bolt will do it. Okay, Lightning Bolt, Unholy Heat, same thing. We're chilling. I'd be so mad if my opponent just like drops Murktide Regent and kills me. Sure. Okay, it's just a DRC. That's fine. Okay, so my opponent has Up the Beanstalk in their deck, so they're going to be a little bit bigger than normal. Take your card. Honestly, like, you're castable. That's good enough right now. It's technically a lethal attacker. I don't think I am supposed to Grief to protect it or anything, but technically a lethal attacker. The Death Touch mode is not nothing here. They like whatever card that is. It's presumably either a removal spell or a blocker. They don't get fetch lands anymore to shuffle. So that's a thing. That's fine. Delta goes to Graveyard, as that's a thing that would kill them. Okay. I think I need the mana, and I would like to try to kill my opponent sooner rather than later. Like, this is dazable, which is not the best. I haven't given my opponent very many opportunities to counterspell, but it has to be daze. Force of Will is not currently live, so I think it's fine. My opponent has also used, I think, 3 red removal spells already. Yeah. I mean, they've got more in their deck. That's a Murktide to Graveyard. Happy to see that. Alright, we get there. But my opponent definitely was in that game in a way that I wasn't expecting them to be. Edict, great. Plague Engineer, playable? How do I feel about this card? It dies to Unholy Heat and Lightning Bolt. It's just my weakest card here. Like, this spirals on its own and is already a must remove immediately. This impacts the graveyard, these impact card draws. I can't really cut this stuff, it goes too well with this. Yeah, this is unfortunately my cut here. But it was in play as a lethal attacker, so, you know, there's that. So I have a Sudden Edict for something like a turn 1 DRC. And then I can play the rest of this game probably around days. Ooh, I don't even have to. Sure, we got some thinking to do on my turn then. This troll isn't particularly good. I can just put it under the Chrome box and play a dazable Douthie Voidwalker, and if it doesn't get dazed, it's pretty damn good. It does get dazed, I just grief my opponent next turn, have Sudden Edict after that. I'm going to say that that's okay. And we don't have to worry about not having Reanimate fodder, since this is a like Lightning Bolt red removal based matchup. Alright, cool. It is in play. Yeah, the red removal is fine. It doesn't immediately go to the graveyard, She is great. This is all fine. Now there is some chance that my opponent still just has daze, and they daze the grief that I'm about to play. I think I'm fine with that. I think taking some of the Questing, Druid, Murktide, Regent, Caliber cards is really important. Love that. Love that a lot. But I want to, I think, play that reactively rather than proactively. Okay, yeah, there's a daze. Plague Engineer could miss its window where it kills X1 creatures. There's already 3 card types in graveyards, so DRC is soon out of that range. Opponent has an engine online. Yeah, so stuff like that is going to start happening. And I am very much an aggro deck at my core. I am not the best at, like, grinding games out as the game goes along. Like, this is a true aggro deck. Cantripping Murktide is some shit. I mean, we have Sudden Edict for this. And this puts, I don't think I Dark Ritual out a Plague Engineer right now. This puts DRC back into the range of eating it to Plague Engineer, which is nice. Sure. And a follow-up cantrip as well. And a fetch declare. Graveyard's already back up to 4 types, though. Ugh. Yeah. Sure. Daze is a thing. I don't think I'm giving up a Dark Ritual to play around Daze. Got me. Alright. 3rd land drop. Oh, they've got that as well as just a secondary Murktide. And my opponent played that and they knew my top card. I think I'm basically dead. Like I think I kind of don't really come back from like this combination of card advantage. I'm not gonna scoop yet because like Sheoldred that resolves can do some serious work, for example, but I think the damage is done here. So like I am at 13 literally in terms, good God, in terms of life total, but I'll concede now after whipping another draw. I don't think anything changes about my boarding here. I could bring in Thoughtseize, but I don't really have things that I want to take out. So we are going to be on a Grief Reanimate Grief plan here. I think I just pitch the Dark Ritual and keep multiple Reanimates. If I take Ponder and Brainstorm, I can leave my opponent with 0 castable cards. And if they find Lightning Bolt, I just Reanimate again. I think I like that. It is a not 0 risk line, but a decent portion of the time, this just gives me a free game. And that is attractive here. We get our 3 points of damage, and then I get to drop another creature into play. Yeah, this is feeling nice. And my opponent didn't draw Daze or Force to just kind of get me there. Okay, that is not red mana. I mean, redraws are good for my opponent, but they don't have a lot of time. So this is 5 damage, and it increases by 1 every turn. And Exsanguinator Cavalry now is permanently outside of Lightning Bolt range. This is a little weird. I think I'm supposed to take 2 and loot through Chrome Mox here. Do I play that? I don't think I play that. No, I'll play that. I'm going to draw another card next turn anyway. Note this does have Menace. Oh, yeah, okay. So, just little lessons here. Lightning Bolt conceptually was the card in my opponent's opening hand that was easily the best against what I was doing, but since I knew that I had 2 different things that I could discard, I could sculpt a better plan than just take Lightning Bolt. And this plan doesn't always work, but scoreboard. Alright, this is a little weird. I'm going to keep this hand. It doesn't do anything on turn 1, but it should be pretty good from turn 2 on. Sorry, I had to run down my clock. I realized I had a quick content obligation to do after I had already paired. So we're going to be playing... That draw is a little weird. I think I'm supposed to just ignore that card for the time being. I think I am just supposed to Dark Ritual into Grief and not play and lose City of Traders. I think I just want to be able to play a 4-drop on turns 2, 3, and 4, and we ignore this card. We're not quite fitting into the plan. It does open us up to Daze, which, like, could be a thing. Blue fetch lands are kind of generic-y. Sure. Alright, just immediate Swords to Plowshares on my creature. That's fine. Actual factual counter spell. I mean, I'm taking that. It's just slightly awkward in that now the follow-up Grief isn't particularly good. It just accomplishes putting the Uro into the graveyard, assuming my opponent cycles Lorien Revealed. So I probably just play Shoulder this turn rather than Grief, which is a little weird. And then on some future turn, I will get to play both of these at the same time and hopefully have them go ham and do cool things. I assume this is now Cycle Lorien Revealed. Oh, they're not? Interesting. Okay. Not saying it's a mistake. They do still have 2 more land drops. Okay. So this is gonna cause some more damage off this Sheoldred. And I might actually get a chance to snipe the Lorien Revealed from my opponent's hand. This is Grixis, right? Yes. Alright, we might be eating a Leyline Binding or something here. That's perfectly reasonable. Ooh. So how am I beating Uro longer term? I think it's the lifelink stuff. Like, I really want to Grief and take this Lorien Revealed before my opponent draws 3 with it, but I believe that it's correct to just play out multiple Exsanguinator Cavalries here over the course of 2 turns. Like, the Uro is the short-term problem, the Lorien Revealed is the long-term problem, and I need to first jump the short-term hurdle. Since my opponent did fetch a white source last turn, some portion of the time they end up using Lorien Revealed to get the secondary green mana, and then I don't actually have to worry about this being a draw 3. I guess the Death Touch ability on this is, like, also not irrelevant against Uro. Yeah, okay, we've still got some agency here. Nice, okay, cool. So my opponent can Uro. This Menace creature can still attack into it. And this can too, because if my opponent blocks, I just give it Death Touch, and I am perfectly happy with that interaction. And no land drop as follow-up. Yeah, we're battling. Slightly awkward in that I have to hold up 3 mana in order for this to be a Death Toucher. I don't think it is correct for me to do that now that my opponent does not block. Those scale up. I think I Grief my opponent here, and then play this next turn to continue scaling these without necessarily telegraphing it. But I think it's just pretty important to take a white removal spell for this card. Ooh, hold up. You have red mana. Can I beat 4th Aerlingas for X equals 3? I don't know that I do. Especially if it becomes X equals 4. This is very close. It's like, taking this means the Uro damage is much, much, much more real. I'm going to let my opponent remove one of my creatures and not let them go wide of what I'm doing. Alright, so the Uro is going to crash in. The damage is not irrelevant. That's too far, but like, this game is not currently about damage. This game is, I think, about card advantage, and those scales are tipped slightly in favor towards my opponent with their active Uro. My damage outpaces their life gain pretty easily, but all it takes is, like, up the beanstalk into that Leyline Binding, and I'm in a lot of trouble. Recombat this, I think. Okay. I think now I play this and send in with everyone. I look a little foolish if my opponent just set up a Terminus, but this is much better versus just single target leyline binding that I'm expecting is coming. Yep. Yeah. Now this card is much worse. I don't actually want to funnel mana into that. What do I need? I don't think I am supposed to loot. The extra counter here is nice. Like, if I loot, I'm just throwing away City of Traders, which I would prefer not to do. Okay, this is just some extra life gain, which is fine. Like, the card draw is super relevant. I'm a little surprised to see Lorien. Okay, no, that makes more sense. I was going to say, I would be surprised to see it cycled for a normal land at this stage, but Mystic Sanctuary for 4th Airlingas is pretty brutal. Life's bad, folks. Douthie Voidwalker, you are late to the party. I think this is the point where I'm just dead. Like, this is a source of card advantage. My opponent's going to be the Monarch. They're going to have infinite blockers or attackers. I think this one has slipped away. So this card is medium here. It can scale up. It does have a mana sink, but it is just my weakest on the surface primary body. I might just play fairies. As weird as this sounds, as 2/2 flying attackers that can happen to also take out Uro. And just upgrade the knights into those. I think that's my plan, as weird as it is. It disrupts Uro and also disrupts endgame Mystic Sanctuary nonsense. Not a line I find myself taking very often. How do I feel about this 6-card hand? It's a very good 6-card hand. I don't think I can give up a real body here for Chrome Mox. I think I just accept a very good 6-card hand. Like, Douthie Voidwalker is great and all, but it's not so good that I'm willing to give up a Sholdred, which can be a really heavy hitter in this matchup. There is going to be a question of whether or not I play Douthie Voidwalker or Exsanguinator Cavalry immediately. I'm going to play Voidwalker in hopes of keeping some stuff out of the graveyard. This may or may not actually accomplish its goal. My opponent could like brainstorm in response and then play Leyline Binding or Swords to Plowshares on their turn, and I get minimal value out of this card. But I think the Cavalry is more important, so not playing that first is potentially worthwhile. And every individual card that I keep out of the graveyard is relevant too. Like, even a fetch land is one more card required for Uro later. Sure. And goodbye. Shoulder It is now my play this turn. Got a big beefy butt that can block a token off 4th Airlingas, makes Brainstorm and Friends worse. It might just eat a Leyline Binding. Sure. Okay, yeah, so that's just reducing the cost of Leyline Binding. That's good. Dark Ritual is very obviously not what I'm going for here. I don't think I'm going to take 2 to hold up Sudden Edict within this turn cycle. I think I've got mana next turn. Like, I don't think I'm bottlenecked on mana. My opponent also just doesn't have that many creatures. Alright, I need to swing the game in my favor very quickly. Or, like, as we have just seen again and again today, my opponent's Up the Beanstalk will absolutely destroy me. I just don't keep up with that endgame card advantage as an aggro deck. So, let's immediately loot through Chrome Mox. I will turn one of these into an actual land drop. Then I can play my 4 mana cards without taking any chip damage. Yep. And I think this is the point where my opponent stabilizes and wins. I've got 2.5 dead cards in hand. Oh, fuck. Okay. Let's talk about this. Alright. This is just, like, not an exciting card to draw, though. I don't know what I'm looking to draw, though, honestly. Alright. We got an Uro for our trouble. So I guess there's that. Okay. Goal is make opponent pop Pernicious Deed for X is 6. Can we make that happen? Just hard cast a troll. They have no removal. I mean, step 1. Okay, not so much with step 2. However, if we do get them to pop Pernicious Deed for X is 6, and I get 3 things back, you know, it's sounding nice. Sure, no threat yet, but, you know, that means that my opponent has a handful of answers. I expect the game is fully lost, but I'm not going to concede until my opponent sticks a win condition. Yikes. Sure. Okay. At this point, I've got so many bad cards to loot through that it's probably okay to make another land drop. Alright. Thanks, deck. We are seeing some movement end of turn. Sure. So, in my opinion, Brainstorm is like not a super necessary card at this stage of the game unless their hand is pretty weak. So that was probably an incredibly strong Brainstorm. That is very weird to me. They have 2 onboard active fetch lands, and that could just be a draw 3. That also draws 3 more, like a draw 6. Deck. I fucking beg you. Draw something, anything. No, it's just another land and pass. Alright, at this point, I'm so dead. I just accept that. We have bricked. It is turn 13. My opponent is at a safe life total with 3 beans, an active removal spell, 6 cards in hand. I've had enough. This opening hand can play a Douthie Voidwalker on turn 1 and just has no follow-up play. I don't think this is enough aggro in my aggro deck. Okay. This is not the perfect hand here. We're kind of hoping that Douthie Voidwalker does some hot things, and we sequence it this way so that if this gets Force of Willed, I can reanimate it afterwards. But we're a little lacking in the stuff department. The hope here is that neither one of my creature dies so that I can naturally start scaling this up without sinking mana into it. Or alternatively, I just draw like another Douthie Voidwalker or another Knight to have a valid play for my turn. Do I go all in? Against Underground Sea, I think I will. Let's go. Send them. No blocks. +3/+3. This is 7 damage this turn. And 7/+1 damage every turn from here because of the additional +1/+1 counter. I'll be outside of range of getting killed with an Orcish Bowmaster's Ambush. I'm not outside of Lightning Bolt until next turn, though. Okay. I may or may not be able to race this. What the fuck is that? Is that the bounce spell with funny names? Yes, that is the bounce spell with a funny name. Another Reanimate is not what I am looking for. Send them. Pump again. So this is now 8 damage, and this scales up. Alright, well, if you came here to watch the Knight do something, this is its round. Like, I also had a weird line available to me where I just attack with the Knight, and then I cast Burning Wish for Thoughtseize. I didn't think of that until just now. So I cast my opponent's Burning Wish for Thoughtseize. My opponent bounces this, so they don't die. I then reanimate the Douthie Voidwalker. I do think I have to be focused on not dying. I don't know that putting my opponent to 1 is good enough. Oh no, this doesn't have a void counter on it because it exiles itself. JK. Alright. I will put my opponent to 1 then. Yeah, no blocks. Like, this is lethal damage. You have to act first. You bounce that. Put you to 1. I think putting my opponent to 1 and denying a fetch land is better than taking the 2 worst cards from my opponent's hand by casting, what is it, Oblivion? I'm not 100% sure of that. All right. The old Hail Mary Brainstorm. No fetch gets to follow it. So whatever cards are there are the cards that are there. Opponent's got to storm off through this. Here we go. Not cracking LED, though? Oh, I see. Sure. So this is fully... Yeah, so Douthie Voidwalker is in play, meaning that that went to exile, not to graveyard. Looking at my opponent's hand, though, they had an awful lot of nothing. A bit of a hybrid build here. So, like, there's the LEDs and Echo, in addition to the Beseech the Mirror stuff that I was kind of expecting. Null Rod, good. Thoughtseize, good. These things form a tier 2 of things that are playable. Sudden Edict is the worst card in my main deck here. I always have to board in these 5. I think I need the fairies too, since my opponent is on Beseech and Echo. Fairy doesn't always disrupt Echo, but sometimes you can get it. I think that means the knights come out here, and probably a Shouldered or 2. How many more cuts do I need? I need 2 cuts. Yeah, I probably just get rid of some top end. I have some alternative lifelink over here in these matchups. A couple points of life gain can sometimes stop a Beseech line. I think this is fine. Do you need soul lands, YouTube viewer? Let me tell you, I have some soul lands for trade right here. This is an auto mulligan. Something I have to keep in mind when I'm on the draw is that Veil of Summer can sometimes disrupt my cool, sexy discard stuff that I might like to be doing, like so. This is a very strong hand, though, assuming no Veil of Summer. You gonna Thoughtseize me? Are you gonna Cantrip? This isn't green mana holding up Veil. It is just a pass the turn line. Sure. I probably just pitched the most expensive card to Grief here. If my opponent brainstorms, they do not brainstorm. You could have played out Lotus Petal to hold up Veil of Summer. Instead, I get to ruin everything you love? Yeah, so I'll take Brainstorm, reanimate the Grief, and then I'll take the Beseech, leaving my opponent with just some mana. So now they are holding up Veil of Summer, which is relevant for Orcish Bowmasters. Send them. Do I now just Dark Ritual into Cavalry? Bowmasters is the same amount of damage while also being a pseudo-hate card. But I think I like the life gain here. There's also some portion of the time where my opponent just blows Veil of Summer as a draw 1 here. Awkward because it gives up Lotus Petal, though. That's fine. That's a new land drop. And these cards are still here. This is a Ponder, not a Brainstorm. And we're going to look to get our life total back up above 20 ASAP for this. That's interesting, but less good because of Veil of Summer. Let's just get in for my 5. Opponent's at 12. I scale up. Yeah, I think I'll just pass the turn. I can Bowmaster if my opponent starts getting cute. And then assuming that I don't fully go off, or they fully don't go off this turn, I Bowmasters point the trigger at them, see if they Veil of Summer. If they Veil of Summer, I get to Thoughtseize a card of actual substance on my turn. My opponent went into the tank for quite some time before passing the turn here. So let's try to do exactly what I just talked about. So this is 3, 6, potentially 7, 8, 9. Regardless, not lethal. We're trying to get the Veil. We did not succeed in getting the Veil. Now reanimate. That is not currently good. Opponent goes to 3. I get a blood token. I believe that I am supposed to loot the reanimate and try to draw fairy. So fucking clutch. Let's try to destroy target Lotus Petal here as well, I think. I think since I know... What are you doing, opponent? Why is Veil of Summer in your deck if you are not going to use it? I'll take Burning Wish. Yeah, okay. We take those. That's a bit of a weird way to end a league. I think my opponent misplayed a lot in that last round, but you know, everybody's new to Legacy at some point, right? Everyone's trying new decks at some point. I do that every day. How do we feel about this card? B minus? Like, I am not embarrassed to be playing this card. This card did do some good things in this league. Both of its abilities were relevant. The fact that it was a knight was relevant. So the real question is this better than just playing more removal, more thought seizes, another land? And I'm not sure that the answer is yes. But this is not an embarrassing card. Exsanguinator Cavalry continues to impress. I'm pretty happy with this card. Although I will say the 8 soul lands while also trying to play Dalthy Voidwalker is definitely a little bit awkward. Like, you want to maximize the soul lands to make this a more consistent turn 1 and turn 2 play, but that comes at the cost of making Dalthy Voidwalker harder to cast. So I feel like the list as a whole is not stronger than already existing mono black deck lists, but this was pretty enjoyable to play. I think if you're going to try to move forward with a deck that looks like this, though, you got to figure out how the fuck to beat Beans, because I don't know. They have too much removal for us to just aggro them out early, and they have too much card advantage for, you know, our deck, just generally speaking. So you need to either get better at going under or add some sort of like Palantir type card that can help you grind, but I don't know that adding something like that in the Orcish Bowmaster's world is good. So yeah, I don't know quite where that leaves us in terms of improving this deck list further, but there were some solid ideas here. I am a stuffy boy. I think I need a nice hot shower so I feel better. But if you need to buy some cards so you feel better, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your next order. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!